Morning, everybody. Was that really loud for a 10 a.m. start after a giant party? And I'm loud. Hey, they're loud too. I think they had a fun time last night. Yeah, come on in, everybody. We're going to get started here right away. Have a seat. There is one little housekeeping kind of thing they wanted me to say, and that was, if you found some Mac admins t-shirts, like the black t-shirts, there was some that there was like 2 left on the table. Someone picked them up, and it was someone who bought them and then forgot them. So if you did pick them up, talk to anyone in the pink shirts and give those t-shirts back so they can give it to the person that misplaced them, right? But yeah, there's a couple more people coming in here. No, you're late. Close the door. No. Come on in. We're going to get started right away. Perfect. So, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Now, if you know me, I'm usually not this angry, right? It's just a ChatGPT picture. And true story, a week ago, maybe a little bit more, like a week and a half ago, this presentation was completely done, right? Everything was great. But then I got to thinking, I had an idea, and well, I'm talking Apple virtualization with a program called Tart, Apple Tart. And it gave me opportunity to be like, let's make a baking metaphor. Let's take it 360 here because, sorry for the noise. See, it didn't go over. My dad's a baker. I grew up in a bakery, actually. So, yeah, let's have fun with it. Oh, yeah, first I have to tie this up. I guess I'm a shy tire. I can't tie it publicly on stage. I'd really suck in a dungeon. Okay. Well, let's dive in. Bakery themed, as I said. And notice I'm smiling. This is the menu for today, or recipe, so to speak. Okay? We're going to really start off talking about what virtualization is really quickly due to the limited time frame that we have, and I have a lot of slides and a lot of information. We're going to talk about modern Apple virtualization, what is Apple virtualization on Apple Silicon, and what tools you can use, and kind of give you a workflow to give you that disposable virtual machine to take home at the end of the day. Okay? So let's dive in. First off, let's take a look at Apple virtualization. Now, the first thing you got to note, what is virtual machines, right? A virtual machine is kind of in the name, right? It is a virtual computer, on a host. Apple produces its own Apple virtualization framework, and there's a lot of pros to it. One is, on Apple Silicon, virtualization, or VMs, are extremely fast, okay? Few things, there's some few caveats which we'll get into, but let's look at the kind of the history of the virtual machine framework on Apple Silicon. So the Maison Plats for our virtual machines, it started with Monterey. Now before Monterey, there was a virtualization framework at the beginnings. It wasn't very good. It was kind of in infancy, but main reason that we're going this direction is there was no such thing as kernel extensions anymore, system extensions, and when you're dealing with something like a virtual machine that has access to the OS level hardware, you kind of want to make your own framework. Monterey had a few little cool things, Linux support, but no GUI, no shared folders. It was literally spin up a VM, it works. Then we got into our Ventura. That was kind of the first one that was pretty manageable, right? Still, you still had like a few things that didn't work, no clipboard, for example, but had Linux GUI support, and again, speed was fast. I think the best update, though, was macOS Sonoma. We had display refit, so you can move the window around, and it would get bigger. You had shared folders, you had proper keyboard support, and what I mean by proper keyboard support, I mean that it actually recognized a Mac keyboard, but it didn't recognize the language. So you still have to, tell the language of the keyboard in there. And actually, one of the really cool things, that's kind of a mind-blowing thing, was it had Linux GUI support, but also you could use Rosetta in your Linux VM for Intel binaries, which was kind of cool. And then recently, with Sequoia, we had nested virtualization improvements to the point where any M3 or above, you could have a VM in a VM, which is weirdly cool, okay? And iCloud support, which we're going to get to the caveats of that. So it's kind of half-baked, so it's good, and within those constraints, we can get what we need, but this is what doesn't work, right? No App Store, no apps and books, VPP. It's hard not to say that, I'm too old. No Touch ID, no automated enrollment. And we know that you used to be able to, with automated enrollment, get an Intel, Mac, spin up VMware, spoof a serial number, and get that in. That doesn't work anymore, right? Device attestation, VMs can't attest, is now on that whole automated device enrollment workflow, so those won't work. Limited iCloud support. So the iCloud support that's in there is kind of, I think, my personal opinion, for developers, right? You sign into a VM iCloud, it gets a token from the secure enclave from the host. It will then kind of keep you signed in. If you move that VM to somewhere else, that token doesn't match with the secure enclave of the new host, and then you have to sign in again. But really what's supported is like messages, FaceTime, iCloud, and iCloud Photos. And if you look at the developer docs, it's more like, CloudKit and a few other things. So it's more like, hey, I can build an app, I can run on a VM, assign it to iCloud, and test on a different machine if the iCloud stuff is working. For a Mac admin, there's no real purpose. So let's take a look at the ingredients, or what's out there for virtualization. I'm only going to really cover the Apple virtualization framework and free apps. Free is good. So this is just a staple of a few, but we got Tart, Orca, Viable, UTM, and VirtualBuddy. Dive in a closer look at each one. VirtualBuddy, this is the go-to app that anyone who uses a Mac who's interested in trying to play with a virtual machine, I'm like, try VirtualBuddy. You download it off of GitHub, it's free, slick interface, easy to use. Don't worry, I have better workflows for you, but this will get that person up and running with a VM. Viable, created here in the UK by Howard Oakley on Electric Light Company. Great little VM, kind of util. It's really designed for the purpose of creating VMs and sticking on an external drive. And there's a whole bunch of options, so you can have multiple. There's a kind of a app or sister app to it called Vimy or Vimy. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but basically with that app installed, you can just double click your VMs and have it launch. Again, free to download, and has a Linux variant called Livable. One cool thing to point out with Viable is that there is a version that is a complete lockdown version. You're late. No, a complete lockdown version that lets you basically run kind of security testing in it, and it really is a complete lockdown sandbox. UTM, on my pull for the kind of this session on the app, a lot of people use UTM. UTM is huge. It's not just virtualization framework. It's also QEM, right, which is like virtualizing or pretending to be a different CPU architecture. So you could run Windows 95 at a very slow rate on your Mac if you wanted to. It's huge. It works. But I got something better. And we're going to get into that. Orca, they're here. They have a virtualization framework. It's a little bit, an app based on the virtualization framework. It is also free. It's pretty cool. And it does a few other things than my little favorite baking pie here, Tart. But let's talk of those first three, what we have in common. What we have in common is I'm a Mac admin. I'm busy. I want to test something in a VM. This is what I have to do. I speed this up pretty quick here. But I got to start the VM, the app, get an IPSW, either it downloads or have one on my drive. I have to run the install. I have to wait. I got to wait some more. And then by the time it's done, I still have to go through Setup Assistant. And I like to call that the traditional VM manager. So it is kind of a slow, it's not really an instant deployment. It's more like grab a coffee, let it install. 10, 15 minutes, I have an M1, so maybe with anyone with an M4, it might be 8 minutes, but for me, 10 minutes, maybe 15. So that IPSW takes a little time, then I have to go through Setup Manager, then I have to enroll it. Let's talk about it again. IPSW, 10, 15 minutes, right? Setup Manager, they add more panes every year, 10, 15 minutes, right? Then I have to get my enrollment bit done, right? So it's either user-initiated enrollment for a VM, so go to the enrollment page, get that done. Then I have a testing Mac to test. On top of that, I have a testing Mac. I can clone, duplicate this, but it's the same serial number as the original, which means this one Mac, anytime I re-enroll it, it's going to overwrite anything else that I use, right? So, hence the bakery themed, we're going to talk about Tart. Tart is awesome. I like Tart. Tart, command line tool, has a little bit of GUI app, has all the entitlements for the networking. It is designed, not for Mac admins, but for the CI/DI pipelines, right? That infrastructure code, infrastructure as code, it's built for developers who run Xcode and have a farm of Kubernetes Macs, and they can send an Xcode project, it gets built and tested and report back. But if we take just a tiny little piece of that pie, we'll have a workflow for us at Mac admins. So if we look at our ingredients, and we got and those traditional VM managers are the flour, the butter, the eggs. Tart is kind of your instant cake mix. Okay, it's a little bit faster. Let's dive in. Okay, Tart, ready in minutes. Easy install for all the brew fans out there. It's a brew command. If you don't trust brew, you should talk to the work brew guys here. Also, with brew and a work brew, you can install it. There's two things to it. There's the binary and an actual app that is the kind of the GUI to to show what is virtualized. And really, tart.run, place to get started. More information later. So our ingredients, we can build from an IPSW just like those traditional ones, right? Once we build from an IPSW, we can clone, we can easy import, we can easy export, all from the command line. So again, scriptability, automation, pretty easy. The secret sauce, the secret ingredient, is OCI registries. Hands up for anyone here know what I mean when I talk about OCI registry. Who's ever used Docker before? Okay, so you've talked with an OCI registry. Basically, it is just a format of storing something like an operating system image or like a container image in a web repo, okay? So that's the hidden kind of secret ingredient. I don't have to install from an IPSW. I could pull down a complete finished OS from an OCI registry. But let's take it from the beginning. So this is Tart, open up terminal, create from IPSW, boom. 10, 15 minutes, again, using the same framework, we have a complete and finished virtual machine. I don't want to touch that one. I want to clone it. So Tart list to see what I have. That's what I have. Let's clone it. I'm going to do a Tart clone. That's, boom, done. Tart list, 2 VMs. But guess what? They're not taking any of the space, right? It's just taking the same amount of space of just one because of APFS. So you can have multiple clones. Once you spin one up and the things change, then the space will increase, but it's a quick and easy clone. If we go one step further, the instant cake mix. I just connect to Cyrus Labs, who makes Tart, their OCI repo and GitHub. Boom, pull down an image. It's about 20 gigs, comes down. I have a full done Mac OS. I'm going to clone it to a new VM. Boom, now I have 2. Notice now it says one is local, that's the clone, and one is from an OCI registry. There's also another line there that I'm not showing, which is the kind of MD5 hash, so that if there's any changes to the one online, if you do another pull command, it's just going to pull down the changes. So it's pretty neat, pretty quick, right? So let's take a look at that new clone. So there's a bunch of flags for Tart. One of the flags I'm introducing here is display refit. Remember, in Sonoma, there was that feature display refit. So it's going to open up in a window, but if I change the size of that window, because who doesn't like to change the size? I don't want a 640 by 480. Change the size, it's just going to change the screen resolution of the VM. So in 10, 20, 30 seconds, after cloning it and starting it up, I have a VM. Now, take a really close look here. Where's Setup Assistant? What did the guys at Tart do for this image in OCI? So let's take a closer look at that instant cake mix. So a quick review, or just kind of a recap of this. It's pretty cool. We have the OCR, right? We can view many clones. And there's another little bit of a secret sauce here. And that is, we can also just tell Tart on any of our clones to set a random serial and a random MAC, which basically means on one image, I can just keep on cloning off that image and have multiple different VMs in Jamf Pro based on one image, one work that I did, and not have to worry about anything, right? I don't have to have them re-enrolling over one another because they have different serial numbers. That's a really cool feature. So let's do that. Take our clone, and I'm going to use Tart. I'm going to run the command here for display, random serial number and random MAC. And we're going to then enroll this MAC via user-initiated enrollment. Now, we've all seen this command line stuff before, so let's just pretend the VM booted up. There's only half an hour left, and I have a lot of slides, a lot of content for you. So it's more like, okay, it booted up. We went to the enrollment page of Jamf Pro here. We downloaded the profile and re-enrolled the Mac. So already I've saved some time, right? Instead of installing from IPSW, I pulled down an image, I cloned it, I started it up, no setup assistant, went to the desktop, and then I just had those enrollment steps to do. So pretty cool. The thing is, can it be faster? And yes, the whole point of this presentation, it can be faster, right? So cloning is great. From the OCI, we can not have to worry about overwriting each of our VMs with the random serial and random MAC. The enrollment bit is slow, and we're going to make it faster. So we have our instant cake. Can we eat it too? That's the question. So our next step, looking at Tart here, is crafting those custom images. So when I did a Tart pull from that OCI registry, well, how are they doing that? What's the magic ingredient there, right? What's their secret ingredient? And that's Packer. So a quick recap. We got Tart now we got another tool, Packer. Easy to use, install from Brew. If you don't trust Brew or a tap, talk to the Work Brew guys. But easy install Packer, right? Then we just need basically the instructions, the Packer file, on what we need to do to create this VM. They're already on the internet. So if we take a look at Cyrus Labs' GitHub repo, they have a bunch of templates to use. Now, remember I just pulled down the OCI image for Sequoia. But if I need to do some Sonoma testing or some Venturin testing, I can pull down theirs and just do some quick testings on an OS level, right? Remember, if you're running the most recent version of Mac OS, you can still go back a few versions of Mac OS in a VM without having to pull out some old hardware and test again. Still a good thing to do. But as you see here on Cyrus Labs, they have the Packer file here, so we can take what we need from this, and we'll show you what it does. And the next thing we do to make this enrollment a little bit quicker is get an enrollment invitation from Jamf Pro. So we need to go to Jamf Pro. We go down to enrollment invitations. And here we can email, and I'm doing that in quotes because we're not really going to email it. We just need that invitation ID. And this is how we generate one. You can also generate this via the API, but yeah. It's a GUI. It's nice. And sorry for those 10 a.m. I had too many beers last night. I should have done this in dark mode. But we go into enrollment invitations. We create new. We put an email address in. we set the restrictions that we need, right? The real big point there, and I was making a joke rather than actually following along, and that was you want to basically state that you want this enrollment to continue over and over again. You don't want it to use once, right? Because we want to use this number over and over again. And protect your number, right? This ID here, you don't want to have like, oh, I'm going to put it in my GitHub repo, because with this ID, they can enroll a Mac, right? So don't. So keep it safe. But with this ID, though, we can then quickly use two things. First off, we can use this to create a web link on the desktop of a Mac, our VM that we're going to build, and this web link will have this URL. Notice this URL is your enrollment URL. Notice that in this enrollment URL, there's a question mark, which is a variable, which is the next thing we're going to do is, hey, question mark invitation equals the ID that you just had. And in those options in Jamf Pro, if you're looking at the video and not my lovely face, you would have saw that you don't require a login, and we're going to use this over and over again. So what does this mean? If we hit that URL with the invitation ID, it goes directly to download MDM profile, which is kind of handy. So that takes out a lot of steps when we're building our VM. So now, all I would need to do is create a VM with my own custom Packer image and leave a shortcut on the desktop. I double-click that shortcut, boom, ready to enroll. Could do one even better. Put that invitation ID in my own custom profile, double-click, boom, have an enrollment profile. No going to anywhere. So that ID is key here. So with that information, let's take a look at creating our own custom Packer file. So this is a lot of Packer information summed up in a very short amount of time. And that is, here's your Packer file. At the top, we have the Packer required plugins. So Packer is not made by Cyrus Labs and used for every OS you can think of. So what we're telling it here is, hey, we're going to build something with like Packer. Here's the instructions to build something. These are the instruction set that we're going to use. And that is the required plugin of Tart. Orca has their own plugin as well, and it's basically a build plugin to build a macOS image. And I'll get into how what we need to do to get that working. And then last bit, I added some variables here, and that just means you don't have to go parsing through this file to figure out what you need to do. You just set these variables, the default here. And really what we're doing here, we put our Jamf Pro URL, and then we put our invitation ID, right? We just edit the defaults here. And then down below, you'll also see there's another one here, which is like the name of the VM. And there's another variable here also, is the path to the IPSW, which you could use HTTPS or a file path within your disk. Moving further down this Packer file, we'll see a bunch of other gobbledygook. Well, this is the information of the build. Notice right now I have the IPSW variable that I declared above, and I have the VM name. But then I have other things here. I have like CPU, I have memory, I have disk size. All these things are predicated within here. So when it builds it, it actually uses the Tart to build to this specification. Then there's all this other text, like what's this? Well, this is the magic. This is the cool stuff. And I'm going to show you. All this stuff down below here is automated setup assistant. So this will build your base image literally walking through setup assistant. You don't touch it. And we only have to do this once, and it builds it out. You save it, you clone off of it, and then you have a VM that you can use over and over and over again. Take a look closer. Notice that, you know, they have some really interesting comments here. Some disgruntled, some not. Little shrug here. It should be this, but it's not. So, but again, this is just pulled off of what Tart is using or Cyrus Labs is using for theirs. And it's a very active community. Every OS update, they rebuild a new one for you. So looking further, there's some more stuff down below. This is, well, we already have admin as the username and password for this. This is basically what developers really like. If this is a disposable VM we're not going to use in production, right? This is a testing workflow. I just want frictionless. So I don't have to go sudo and enter a password. I'll just go sudo command, and it gets done if I'm doing something in a VM. So these are all this little extra little bits here. You can break it down, again, out of scope of this presentation, but you can dive further within the Packer file and see what it actually does. And more command line stuff. See, it says provisioner shell. Say that 5 times fast. So what it does is that during the build process, it goes through setup assistant automatically, opens up system preferences automatically, goes through by like keyboard shortcuts, goes down to SSH, turns it on, screen sharing, turns it on, and when SSH is on, it then, the script, provisioner shell, SSH into the VM, runs these inline shell commands, and does what you need to do. At the very bottom here, you can see a provisioner shell that I did. And anyone know what that one does at the bottom here? It says it in the text. I'll zoom in for you. I commented my code and no one knows? It's a web link. It's a weblog file. So on the desktop, after this is done, it's going to drop a link right to my Jamf Pro server for enrollment with my invitation ID, no logging in, no nothing. So it goes a little bit quicker, right? Here's another one. Right here. It's another big one. Too big to zoom in, but comment to my code. This puts an enrollment profile on the desktop of the device. So when you're done building it, you won't have a link to go to the website. You will just enroll the machine. So pretty cool. So we can make that enrollment a bit faster. We can make basically everything faster. Our base image will be a fast enrollment process, saving time. And again, it's that disposable kind of mindset when it comes to VMs. I just need a quick testing workflow. So this is the build process. This is what it looks like. I start up, I do a Packer init. Okay? Init, going back to that beginning of the Packer file, was to init any of the plugins I'm using, and the plugin I'm using is the Tart builder. So it's going to initialize, go to GitHub, download the Tart plugin into the Packer build directory, ready to go. Then I can do a Packer format if I want the code formatting. Trust me, if it's not formatted well, it's just going to fail anyway, but format's nice just to format it. Validate your Packer files before you ever run a Packer build, because validate will tell you right away, line 139, error. Go down, oh man, I missed a quotation mark, and then boom, you're good. So this is the build process going in the background. I was just talking here. This is sped up 350% because I have an M1. Dave, maybe an upgrade? No. It goes a little bit faster, but it's doing that traditional VM stuff here, and then notice my mouse at the top. It's not moving, but it's going through Setup Assistant magically. All those instructions were set in that Packer file. It's going to click through. Now, who here has not seen Setup Assistant and wants to watch this? You do? Dave. Okay, no. But yeah, so it's going through, it's setting up the username and password automatically here. It's going through and setting up. My mouse isn't moving. It's just doing it all by itself. At the end, what am I going to do here? Well, I'm just going to clone that because I have my base image now. I'm not going to screw with that base image. I'm going to clone it off. I'm going to do a random serial number. I'm going to launch it, and boom, there's my Mac with the web link on the desktop. So anytime I clone off my base image, I'm ready to go for testing. Here's what the enrollment profile. So to recap all this stuff, this is what it looks like now. A quick clone. Nope, not going to do that. I'm going to enroll. Okay? So quick and easy, done. Who likes to share? I'm a sharer. Share is caring. And when you bake something, you want to share it, right? Right? Yeah. Ah. So the people who didn't say, you're not invited to my birthday. So with these images, we can actually take them and share them, right? So it doesn't have to be you have to share publicly with everybody, but we can take the image we want and maybe share it with our team. So if you have a testing workflow and you work with a couple people, you can be like, hey, how about we put this image here, and anytime we want to test a 15.5 workflow, pull it down, run the test, enroll it, and then we're good to go. And that's the power of OCI registries. So really easy to use. There's a multitude out there. I have Amazon tools, so I looked into it with one of our awesome CEs in Australia, Daniel McLaughlin, and me and him went into it thinking, okay, OCI registry is going to be tough. No, it's Amazon ECR, click, 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 done. I know Oracle has some, I think Maxadium has some, GitHub has its own. I never really dived in because it was just so easy for us to just set up an OCI registry with Amazon ECR that we just did that. And if you look at the calculator, so this is not through any, I just went to an Amazon calculator website that tells you what you want. I said, hey, I'm going to host 2 images, probably do 100 gigs of traffic a month, and the cost for the year was $120. So it's not like, it's not too expensive. And I think even with GitHub, it's free, but you'd have to figure out how GitHub OCI registry works. So take a look. I'll go through what I did in OCR. Again, sorry for the light mode. I should have did dark mode. That slide came up and half the room went, so. But it was really easy. In Amazon ECR, you can do public or private. I did private. Private gives you a little bit more options like certificate or authentication stuff. Tart will log in to any OCI registry with like username and password or certificate. So you can secure these, right, for testing purposes, especially if you have a link to the VM desktop to your enroll into my Jamf Pro server, right? So best off, private. And literally I created a private repo, and I told Tart to upload it there, and I got a MacaDuck image uploaded, done, right? What does that look like? So without the authentication, this is what it looks like in Jamf Pro, on Terminal, not Jamf Pro, Terminal. Tart, push this image up. Does some checks, creates multiple streams, and then uploads it in chunks. I have a gigabyte internet connection at home, thank you, Netherlands. It's really fast, it works really well, and I can upload one in about 9 minutes. KPN. Not sponsored anyway. Really good. If I want to then share this, again, skipping the authentication part, but if you wanted to, you can tell your colleagues, authenticate against this repo with Tart, and then pull down the image. Boom. Depending if they have a fast internet connection like me, but if they have a fast internet connection, they can just pull it down. Good to go. And they're ready for testing, right? You can tag anytime you push, and let's go back one slide. Right there. Oh, right there. You can tag it. Notice I said push, and I did :latest. That is the tag now to pull down. So if I go pull latest, it's going to pull the latest, because anytime. But if I change this in any way, or I'm betaing, so I go to the developer portal or the Apple IT portal, and I download an IPSW for the next beta, I build an image out, I can put in the version number of the macOS, or I can just say beta, and all we need to do, Tart pull, in the latest, beta, the tag, and then it pulls down that version. So really, really robust. Again, just have to average out like your costs, right? How much you're gonna throw up there and how much you're gonna pay for. Again, not too expensive, like Amazon ECR was not expensive at all, but again, there might be some free versions. We talked about that slide. Okay, so we have a really nice, fast, ready to go image, right? So now some like kind of workflow rules that you want to think about. First off, I like to do this, again, sorry about the light mode, but I like to do this in my smart group for all managed clients. Just take the VMs out. Why do I want to take the VMs out? Remember our things, our caveats that don't work, things that don't work, right? So if I'm scoping out VPP apps to all managed clients because, hey, everyone needs to have Keynote, it's going to hit your VMs and it's just going to fail over and over and over. It's just, there's no point. Also, do you want to edit every single app you're deploying right now to exclude the group that's VMs? That's a lot of clicking. It's just easier just to take it out of the scope for all managed clients, and for the workflows you want to test. Just point it to that group. Which group do you say? Well, this group. There's the this group, Apple Silicon VMs, right? Create that group. Pretty easy. Everything that's coming through the Apple Virtualized Framework is coming in with Virtual Mac 2.1, right? And remember, you could also, if you really like to geek out or whatever, you could use the regulatory expression for VM serial numbers, which is always going to be starting with a Z, right? So this is easy. Works. If Apple changes it, you would just have to come in here and say like 2 or like 3 or whatever, or Virtual Mac. And housekeeping. Remember, a virtual machine will take a license in Jamf Pro. Now, it's not going to be, like we all know, Jamf Pro doesn't stop working if you go over license, and really these are disposable. You're not going to get charged for them. I've talked to one of the CSMs, one of the customers had that, and they're like, yeah, whatever, we're going to delete them. Again, it's just a disposable Mac. Best way, smart group, view, delete. Because remember, we're randomizing the serial number for every single test one we do, so it's going to take it's a brand new Mac every single time. If you don't want to do that, then it'd be the same Mac over and over again, but with a group of people, the randomization helps. Okay? Easy to do, delete them out. Some workflows require a VPP app. Jamf Trust only exists in VPP. I would like to test some of those workflows, right? VPNs still work VPN still works in a VM. So with Jamf Trust, sometimes you can just take it, package it, deploy it, it'll still work. If you have a VPP app, right, that's deployed, you could try just to package it up just for that testing workflow. Add it to an enrollment policy for the VMs, so the VMs come in, enroll, and get what you need. That will still work, right? It just needs a little bit of icing to get it to work, but you can still deploy that package that you want. Things that you have to be aware when you don't, right? When you use these VMs is like there's no FaceTime, there's no video. On Mac admins, one of the guys was like, I'm gonna set up a camera and like stream the video to like the VM. I was like, that's great, but it doesn't work. Like you can't hook any camera to it. So there's no video calling there. There's no hardware USB mappings like that. It's limited. Maybe it's going to expand in the future. As we see, the Maison Place always expands. So just deal with the workflow you can and do what you can, and then share your struggles and tribulations. Really cool feature too. I could not go away without saying this, right? Sharing is caring. And when we're talking about sharing, one of the cool things is VNC. Clipboards don't work. Clipboard sharing doesn't work with the VM and like the VM virtual framework yet, but with the screen share, clipboard does work. So you can run a VM with Tart with screen sharing because they enable VNC during that build process. You can even run it headless, right? So you could run Tart, run VNC, no graphics. I should have put an audio clip in that time, but no graphics. And what will happen is you can see here in the command line, it's going to just start the VM here and then just output an IP address. It's full headless. And then I can see it in my screen sharing and then connect to it. And so I connect to it. So you could even run this remotely on a Mac, SSH in the Mac, run it, connect to VNC, use it, right? Ever been on an iPad and just really wanted to test something on a Mac? You can. Just SSH in a Mac, run it, connect to VNC. There's also kind of an in beta mode VNC. It's like a built-in binary, which will actually even VNC, like give an IP and virtualize the screen of a Mac so you can actually go into recovery mode. It was up there as well. So takeaways, let's save time, right? Let's get this done and as quick as possible. I really, really like Tart, and Tart is awesome. I actually wrote it in my presentation. I like it that much. I actually asked ChatGPT, take this icon, put it on a throne, and have people bow to it. And it did it, because it was just, why not? It's kind of funny. The machines, the VMs, are disposable. It's just, think of it that way. But I had workflows that I had to test. There was like a self-service onboarding workflow with a customer. It was just me and my Mac, and I was like, zip, Tart, literally instantly. I could test those workflows in 20 minutes. I had video recordings of the VMs, everything saying it's not the same with me. I think we've figured out something, you know, but the workflow is disposable, it deleted it, but I could test instantly. And that's just to start with Tart. There's so much other things you can do. There's actual workflows on top of it where you could run another binary from Cyrus Labs that will connect to your Tart VMs and run scripts. So you could call from Cyrus Labs sudo Jamf policy whatever, and it will run on the VM. So it will launch the VM, it will run the policy, and then output what that policy did on your terminal, and you won't see a thing. So that's just a step. So there's some other cool workflows that Mac admins can do here. I just wanted to start with this. There's other cool things with Tart. Tart is command line, so you can script it. You can use it in Xcode. You can use it in Python. One of the things we did at Jamf, the CE team, is we decided that it would be really cool if people could demo what can be done with Jamf, but how would you do that? Well, we wrote a program in SwiftUI that leverages Tart, lives in an OCI registry. I build the images, we host them, and a salesperson can then run this and then show off and enroll the machine and have self-service and can show specific workflows. It works so well that in the States we did JNL and we built a version for JNL. And we put on a USB stick and customers would copy it off the USB to USB stick. So we started the session with, please start copying. But it worked. Once it was copied to the device, you double click, you run it, and they would experience Jamf. Also came in a dark mode. I'm currently working on a small little tool because I would like to have some fake inventory in a Jamf Pro version because, you know, I work at Jamf and I do all these kind of things and show stuff off. So I'm working on a Python Flask app that leverages Tart that will list out all the VMs I have. Let me schedule an on and off. Build it. It does have a dark mode and I didn't use it. Sorry guys. It's really bright when I hit these slides. But all in all, it's really cool. Like, so you can leverage Tart in so many cool ways. Yeah, if you go to motionbug.com, I think I published it for this time. There is a cookbook on how to get started with Tart. Everything I've talked about, the PDF of these slides, but everything is there for you. I also created 2 Packer files for you, one with a HTTP web link on the desktop or one with a profile. So you could start playing with Tart today if you want and get some of your images you need to play with. It's a lot of fun. I did this presentation for my family to a 10-year-old, my wife who's a linguist, and my daughter of 6. They had no idea what I was talking about, but I just wanted to, you know, work it out, see how things were working. I updated the slides. After I finished the presentation, halfway through, because my son decided to fall asleep, my daughter didn't get it. But as I left the house the day before yesterday, she said, Dad, I really hope you win the bake-off. Because I did wear the apron when I did it with my family. So I hope you took a good workflow out of this and have some ideas. I think there's a couple minutes for questions. If there's a couple minutes for questions, 2 minutes for questions. So, and really good questions, no Minecraft questions. He always has questions, it's good.
It's not a Minecraft question, but the cake at the end could have been a Minecraft cake, but we'll just leave that for now.
That was Lego.
The OCI registries.
Yeah.
Other than using someone else's cloud, how could you do that yourself if everything had to be in-house because it has to be in-house?
Yeah, you can build your own Docker repositories, as they call them, or OCI servers.
Oh, right.
So
okay.
there's like I think Oracle has its own. There's a couple open source versions. So it's an option to do. I just never did it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
sometimes
it's
we
possible.
have to.
Yep.
Ooh. Thanks.
Here, catch. You asked a question, so you get a duck. I printed off. It's a chef duck with a Jamf ID. There's a question here.
Yeah, I want a duck. Do you know where you change the serial number? Can you use one that was in ABM, or
Nope,
does it?
no, it doesn't
randomizes?
exist.
Okay.
Remember that workflow is gone. For Intel or anything, all serial numbers for the virtualization framework start with a Z,
Right.
and that's it. So you randomize the serial number so that you don't overwrite each other, but they're all based on the virtualization framework, which means you only get serial numbers
Z.
within the subset
Gotcha.
of VMs.
Cool. Thank you.
You know what? You'll never get ADE working ever in VMs again. That was so just accept it, move on, and use this workflow instead. Here's your duck. Any other questions? You got 7 seconds. Actually, it's -9 here. Oh, bad. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, perfect. Thanks very much.